Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Gunathitamanam chidanandarupam chidabhasakam sarvagam dhyanaghamyam munidhyeyam akasharupam paresham parabrahmarupam ganesham bhajema. Friends, Team Paramvedanta extends a warm welcome to one and all for today's 64th session of Bhagavad Gita, verse by verse. An important question: have we lit the lamp of wisdom within? To light a lamp, we need four things: a container, oil, wick, and a matchbox. This lamp can, however, only remove the outside darkness, but the darkness in the heart can be dispelled only by the light of wisdom or Gnana Jyoti. Again, to light this light of wisdom, this spiritual light, it needs four elements: detachment, the container, devotion, bhakti, or is the oil, one pointed focus or ekagrata is the wick, and gnanam is the matchstick. Without all four, the light of spiritual wisdom cannot shine. In today's verses 18 to 23, Krishna advises bhakti for samsara nivritti upaya or moksha upaya. And these verses shall be explained by Dr. Bhaskar, Srimati Rama Gopal Krishna, Srimati Sukanya Narayan, Dr. Kiran, and Srimati Indumati, under the lead of our Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, who will give us the introduction and intersperse important aspects of the verses. Please listen intently, crystallize the teaching of the Lord to practice in life with firm conviction. Kumari Vaibhavi shall chant the divine shlokas at the end. Do stay and join in the chanting. I request Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir to take over.
Thank you, Shiv Kumar. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are continuing our study of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna is revealing some very, very important information. He declares that this is not an ordinary knowledge. He calls this a royal knowledge. He calls this Raja Vidya. Raja Vidya simply because this knowledge is a liberating knowledge. No other knowledge can set us free from emotional limitations as this knowledge can do. But again, Sri Krishna has introduced a new term saying Guhya Tamam. This is the greatest secret ever. And I want you to be able to pick up the great secret. Why does he call this Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam? This is a secret because even when the secret is shared to another, many people still don't get it. Perhaps one reason is we are still not ready for it. To be able to understand something so profound requires a certain amount of eligibility. And therefore, Sri Krishna has waited for 8 chapters to go before we are ready for it. We need to prepare our mind through Karma Yoga, through Upasana Yoga, and through our satsang to be able to pick up in this chapter, what is this Sri Krishna is trying to say? What is the greatness of this knowledge? And what is the great secret that we have? We have come to that stage of the chapter where Krishna, in addition to introducing himself, particularly in his higher form, which is usually described in the Upanishads, he has now given us why there is so much suffering in the world. Avajananti mam mudaha. Mudaha is a person who is not able to recognize one's true nature. And because we are not able to recognize one's true nature, we are in the trap of what is called avidya kama karma. When I do not know my true nature because of ignorance, I have a feeling that if I'm able to accomplish this, then I will be happy. And this cycle of mogasha, moga karmasha keeps on going on and on. Shri Krishna in this chapter says, he gives us a simple solution. All of us are able to melt our heart into love. And love is very easy when you are able to relate to something higher like Bhagavan. And Shri Krishna in this chapter, although there is a separate chapter, the 12th chapter, which deals exclusively on the topic of bhakti, you will see from the 9th chapter, or particularly in the 9th chapter, some of the most profound verses on bhakti you will hear in this particular chapter. So what we will do is we will quickly see what is bhakti and how bhakti can be a solution to all of us for the problem of samsara. Now, bhakti is love towards a higher principle. How much ever you may love your dog, how much ever you may love your grandchild, you will never say, I have bhakti to my grandchild, because bhakti is something you relate to something higher like Guru, our parents, our nation, so, or God, because something that you revere, something that we consider sacred. So we all understand love in relation to something higher is called bhakti. I will come to a story which Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi says, where as long as I have a feeling of who I am, that means if I identify with my body, I have a very strong sensation of who I am. I know who I am. This is what is called the ego. Ego and love, or ego and bhakti, do not go together. Only when I become egoless, between lovers, ego cannot survive. There cannot be love between two lovers. So too between Bhagwan and the Bhakta. As if there is the ego, there cannot be bhakti. In the 20th verse, there is a of the Upadesha Sara, it goes like this: Ahaminasha Baji, Aham Taya Spurati Rit Swayam Paramapurna Sat. The moment my ego dissolves, he takes over, because I am already that. My ignorance has put a sense of limitations on me, and I identify with my body-mind complex. So all my effort is to be able to take out my identification with the body-mind. And Bhagavan gives us the story of a certain salt doll. There were a group of salt dolls by the sea, fascinated to know more about the sea. They had a lot of discussions until one of the dolls waded into the sea to get a direct experience of what the sea is all about. And the experience was, the more the salt dissolved into the sea, the more the understanding was that unless you become one with the whole, you will not be able to understand. And Bhagwan's description was, by constantly keeping one's attention on the source. Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanaya. Now, if you take that as the source, what happens slowly and slowly, the ego gets dissolved. And that is through bhakti, just like a salt doll dissolving in the sea, my ego has to dissolve. What is Bhakti Yoga? Swami Paramatmananda Ji has given us a wonderful idea what Bhakti is. He says it is not a separate sadhana, but it is a range of sadhana that we are already familiar with. Bhakti Yoga includes Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, because all the three yogas have to be imbued with Bhakti. Now, can you think of doing karma without Ishwararpana Bhava or without Prasada Bhava? Therefore, every action that I do has to be soaked with bhakti, as Krishna will say later in this chapter, Yad karosi, yadasnashi, yadduhoshi, dadasi yad. It does not matter what you do, but whatever you do, can you do it as an offering to me with a certain amount of reverence? That is what makes Karma Yoga a Karma Bhakti Yoga. What about Upasana Yoga? Now, can you have Upasana without God? All our Upasanas is on a picture or an image of God. Therefore, Upasana is close to Bhakti. Even when we do our Jnana Yoga, every time we sit to study our scriptures, We begin with an invocation, we conclude with an invocation, and all we are doing is we are seeing Bhagwan, maybe from an intellectual background, but it is still imbued in bhakti. So therefore, Bhakti Yoga is not a separate sadhana, but it's an integration of karma, upasana, and jnana. Now let us understand, what do you mean by means, what do you mean by goal, and what do you mean by self? Because love can be means love, love can be goal love, and love can be self-love. Correspondingly, the intensity becomes different. For example, I will say, now whenever you are doing a parikrama around Kailash, you will need the help of local people who are experts there, who are acclimatized to help you, to be your Sherpa, to be your guide when you do the parikrama. Now, what is my goal? My goal is to do a 3-day parikrama around Mount Kailash. And because of the certain difficulty and I'm not able to carry my own luggage, I employ a certain Sherpa who will help me in attaining my goal. As long as my project is not complete, I have a great respect. I treat my Sherpa with a lot of reverence until my mission is complete. Once I have attained to my goal, I will thank him, I can tip that person, but I am done with him because my goal is always more important than the means. So now we realize that the means is the first level, goal is the higher level, and the still highest is whom do we love the most? The highest is myself. There is a nice verse from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad where Yajnavalika speaks to his wife who now becomes his disciple. And through this interaction, he says, you know, whom do we love the most? We, all of us, apparently love everybody else. But the undercurrent of all of that is each one of us love ourselves the most. So that means self-love is the highest. With this background as means, goal, and love, let us see, is God my means or is God my goal? Now, if this is very clear, there can be a 180-degree turn in the way we relate to God, because normally we have been trained in all our prayers that whenever somebody is sick, whenever somebody is in difficulty, whenever I have an urgent need, I go to God, and God now becomes a service provider, and all the good things in the world that I want to accomplish now become the goal. So God is now often and often treated as the means. But for students who have been into this path for some time, now know, can we reverse the whole thing? Can I use every difficulty in the world, every interaction possible in the world as an opportunity for me to be able to attain to God? Now, this is a very daring prayer by Kunti to Lord Krishna when Krishna was taking leave. Now, please give me some difficulty, because every time I have difficulties, I think of you. Otherwise, the human mind tends to forget. Now, this is very daring to be able to see the world as the means and God as the goal. Slowly, when you come into the world of the Gita and the Upanishads, you will see I will have to discover the divine in myself. And finally, I will have to identify with God as none other than my true nature. I have now evolved from God to being dear to dearer, and God being dearest. Scriptures also give 3 definitions of God depending upon our own understanding. In the initial stage, we see God as the creator of the world. Later on, we understand that to create the world, God needs some material, and therefore, the God has used himself to bring about the whole creation. And thereby, I now become sensitive to everything in the world. Now, God has now become, instead of being paroksha, God is now become pratyaksha. And when we come into the world of the Upanishads, we will see God as the Adhara, as the God that is all pervasive. Jnana yajnena chapanye yajanto mam upasate ekatvena. That means when I see God as not apart from me, that is the highest form of devotion. Pratakvena. In the initial stages, I see God as apart from me. And some people or all of us have to be trained to see God as Vishwato Mukham. That means the whole world as God. So initially I see God as the creator, then I see God as the creation, and finally I see God as the Adhara, the one that is the existence and consciousness as the world. Finally, the question comes, can Ekarupa and Arupa coexist? Certainly you will say yes. You will see great acharyas who have discovered divinity within themselves know that all these sadhanas are to understand our true nature. They have dropped all these sadhanas. Even though they have dropped for Vyavahara's sake, they continue to do all these rituals, but they know that we can still coexist by, the prayer of a jnani will now be, "Oh Bhagavan, I'm so grateful that you have revealed yourself to me." And therefore, Ekarupa and Arupa can coexist. Now, this is a wonderful table for us to see Bhakti as Manda Bhakti, Madhyama Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, whether we are seeing from the form angle as Ekarupa, Anekarupa, or Arupa. God as the creator, God as creation, or God as the formless, conscious principle in me, existence outside. God can be initially as Paroksha, remote, Pratyaksha as Vishwarupa Ishvara, or Aparoksha as none other than myself. Now, as a mode, is God my means? Is God my goal? Or is God none other than myself? From a sadhana angle, Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, all the three sadhanas have to be imbued in bhakti. With that angle, shall we see the verses of this chapter. The opening verses 18 and 19 will be explained to us by Dr. Bhaskar. Over to you, Dr. Bhaskar.
Om Gurubhyo Namaha. So the 18th and 19th verse of 9th chapter, as life started with Karmakanda, people were soaked with daily rituals. So Lord takes them and says, learn to look them as God. So the seeds of Vishwarupa Varnanam are given to witness a climax in the 11th chapter, Vishwarupa Darshanam. So all these are trailers. So the 9th, 10th and 11th chapter, Vishwarupa Darshanam Abhyasa. So we are training to see God everywhere. So once in this mood, the mode of bhakti also changes. The karma, upasana, Vedantic vichara also. So the devotion, the object of devotion, the Lord's nature also varies. So the culmination of bhakti is nothing but the Lord in his formless nature is none other than myself. Brahmasmi. So Lord says, he is that greatest bhakta. So bhakti culminating in Advaita Jnanam gives liberation. So these two verses actually explains the Sarvam Krishnamaya Jagat. So coming to the verse, Gati Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasaha Sharanam Sukrute Prabhavaha Pralayam Sthanam Nidanam Bija Avyayam. So Gati means destination or goal. So every karta has a destination, that is karmapalam, which is either success or failure. So Lord Krishna says, success also I am, failure also I am. So never reject failure. So sukha dukkhe samakrutve labo labo jaya jaya. In the 2nd chapter, beautifully explained. So rejection of karmapala is like rejection of God. So next word, Bharta means Karmapala Data, because Jivatma can never be a Karmapala Data. So the Lord is a sustainer, so no one cannot reject the Karmapalam. Prabhu is the master or the competent one or the capable one. To do what? To give the Karmapala Dhanam. Because he is omniscience, omnipotent, he has that Shakti to give the Karmapalam Dhanam. That's why Prabhavati iti Prabhu. So Shakshi, from the standpoint of Maya Shakti, I do everything. Shakti Matrena, creation rises, exists and dissolves. From my own standpoint, Lord says, I am only a mere witness. Sharanam. Sharanam means one who has ultimate refuge for everyone. So incidental protector, the examples are Dhruva, Prahalada, Draupadi, and the Gajendra elephant. The ultimate protector from samsara. So Paraprakriti Ajnanam eva samsarasya karanam, as we know. So the Lord actually gives the highest jnanam to dissolve the samsara. So he is both the incidental protector and ultimate protector. That's why Shayate Dukkam Asmin iti Sharanam. Sukruta means he is that the well-wisher or is the close friend. Is actually Sukrut means one helps a person even if he is unknown. Pratupakaram anapekshe upakartaha is Sukrut. So next slide, sir. So Nivasaha means if you take this mantra, Sankachakram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadaram Gaganasadasham. Here in the first line, Bhujaga Shayanam, the Lord is resting on Bhujaga, the snake. Whereas in the second line, it is very clearly seen that the whole creation is resting on the Lord. That's why Vishwa Adaram Gagana Sadasham. So Nivasati Asmin Sarvam iti Nivasaha. So Prabhavaha Pralayam Sthanam means Srishti Sthiti Laya Karanam. I am the substratum from whom the creation rises, rests, and dissolves. Nidana means the storehouse or repository of everything in the creation, all the things, beings, and all forms of knowledge also. Avyaya Bijam means that inexhaustible seed. So there is a difference between Karmapalam and Avyaya Bijam, which has to be understood. Karmapalam means Karmapalams are in potential form, that is Sanchita Rupam, whereas Avyaya Bijam can be taken as everything, even every being in the creation. So the Lord is directly telling that I am everything in this verse. So coming to the next verse, Tapam Mayaham Aham Varsha Nigrunami Utsurjami Cha Amrutam Chaiva Mutyascha Sada Sach Chaham Arjuna. So Lord is telling, I energize the universe, I draw and release the rainwater. I am alone the cause of immortality as well as mortality. I am the manifest as well as the unmanifest, O Arjuna. So Krishna comes to something which is recognized by all the people, that is Surya Bhagwan, that is Pratyaksha Daivam. Ultimately, if you want an inexhaustible energy, we have to go to solar energy. So he says, Aham tapami Surya Rupena. I alone energize in the form of sun. The Lord Sun evaporates the whole ocean. Tons of water, pure, free of cost, is transported through the Vayu Bhagwan. So he says, Aham Varsham Nigranami Utsarjami cha. I absorb through the sunlight and I Nigranami, that is absorption. I release those water as rain, Utsarjami. So because of that, Am Amritas Chaiva Rutyascha. I am the cause of survival through rain because of production of food. So people escape from Maranam. So I am the cause of Amritam. If I don't do that, I cause death. So Mama Sattva Guna Dware Amritasya Karanam, Mama Tamaguna Dware Ahameva Nutyasya Karanam. So I am both the mortality and immortality. Sat Asat Ham Eva. In this context, Sat means manifest creation or the physical body, whereas Asat means unmanifested creation or the subtle or the causal body. So both concrete and abstract creation I am. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar, for a nice explanation. Our objective in the study of the Gita is to know each word and what it means. Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi, as he has explained, Nivasaha Prabhava Pralaya Sthanam. Initially, as we meditate on these words should come like Mayeva Sakalam Jatam, My Sarvam Pratishthitam. The more I'm able to identify with Sri Krishna and the more I'm able to meditate on these words as my real nature. Certainly, it is far-fetched, but Sri Krishna ultimately wants us to be able to have this kind of identification with Sri Krishna. The next and a related verse, verse 20, will be explained to us by Ramaji. Over to you, Rama ma'am.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Traividyamam somapah putapapaha yajnairištva svargatim prarthayante te punyamasadya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan. The Anvaya and summary. Traividyaha, those who are versed in the three Vedas, Somapaha, becoming drinkers of Soma, Bhutapapaha, and purified of sins, Yagnaihi Mam Ishtva, after worshipping me through rituals, Swargatim Prarthayante, pray for attainment of heaven. Te Punyam, as a result of righteousness, Surendra Lokam Asadya, having acquired the domain of King of Gods, Divi in heaven, Ashnanti, they enjoy Divyan Deva Bhoga, the divine pleasures of gods. What does Adi Shankaracharya calls these desire-oriented bhaktas, and the reason is explained in the next slide. Not knowing the superiority of Nishkama Bhakti, ignorant people are trapped in the Sakama Bhakti. Kama Kamaha is another word for Sakama Bhaktas who have desires for Anatma Vishayas. These desire-oriented bhaktas use rituals to satisfy their ahankara and mamakara. Puja Swamiji says that it is as ridiculous as using Ganga Jalam for washing the floor. That is the essence of shlokas 20 and 21. Now, the steps followed by Sakama Bhaktas to achieve their goals are seen in the next slide. The science of Karma Kanda is referred to as Traividya. Those studied and practiced the knowledge of three Vedas, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and all the sources of the rites performed by the priest, Hota, Adharyu, and Udghata, are Trividaha. Trividaha itself formed into Traividyaha, meaning performers of Vedic rituals like Agnishtoma yagas to achieve the worldly goals. By extracting and offering Soma juice, they invoke the Lord in the form of oblation receivers like Vasu, Rudra, and Aditya Gana Devatas. They do not know in reality that the Lord is the Antaryami in all, and the one who sanctions the bounties that the demigods bestow. They drink Somarasa as the prasadam after offering the rituals and become Somapaha. And through these rituals and that very drinking of Soma become purified by burning their papas and negative tendencies that stand in the way of enjoyment in heaven. The next slide shows the results of this Sakama Bhakti. Having purified their mind, they do not seek moksha or the dawn of self-knowledge, but for attainment of heaven as they constantly desire. They go to the higher planes of existence within the material universe and enjoy divine pleasures as a reward for their acquired merits, executing Vedic rituals. These exquisite celestial delights will be available for this person also as long as balance of punyam prevails. Then, what are the limitations of Sakama Bhakti? These performers of ritualistic ceremonies, in the next slide we can see, these performers of ritualistic ceremonies do not get released from the cycle of birth and death. Such people neither have a strong resolve towards liberation nor Vyavasayatmika Buddhi mentioned in chapter 2. Their focus is diverted away from Ishvara or Shreyo Marga towards material pursuits or Preyo Marga, which has doshas like Bandhakatvam, Atruptikaratvam, and Dukkhakaratvam. One of the commentators say that as the punyam ceases, people with maces in their hands will push these Sakama Bhaktas down to earth. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, madam, for a very nice explanation of this important verse with beautiful slides and nice illustrations. What we see is here what happens. This and the next verse will talk about the limitations when God is only the means. Certainly through all the Veda Purva techniques and through prayer techniques, you can get something as great and grand as heaven. But anything in the domain of finite also has its limitations. And therefore, we are able to see it is possible to get all these good things in this world or in the other, but they have their limitations. Can we move beyond God as the means? Similar verse will be explained to us by Sukanya. Over to you, Sukanya.
Hari Om. In the 8th chapter, Krishna elaborated on quite a difficult method of upasana through yogic expertise to attain Kramamukti. In this chapter, he explains attaining moksha through an easier method, that is Saguna Ishvara Upasana for Kramamukti and Nirguna Ishvara Upasana for Jivan Mukti. Verse 20 is about the benefits derived of Sakama Bhakti. And in this verse, Krishna warns of the results of Sakama Bhakti and the limitations. Even though such worship gives materialistic results, it's a finite path and a path of return. Verse goes like this. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye matyalokam vishanti evam trayi dharmam anuprapanna gatagatam kama labhante. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam. After having enjoyed the vast heavenly world, kshine punye matyalokam vishanti. When their accumulated punya is exhausted, they have to come back to Bhuloka. Trayi dharmam anuprapanna. Following the Vedic rituals given in 3 Vedas, Gatagatam Kama Labhante, they attain only the pleasures of arrival and departure. Seekers of sense pleasures, having enjoyed the vast heavenly worldly luxuries in Swargaloka, come back to the world of mortals when their punya is exhausted. Such seekers who have taken to the rituals prescribed in the Karma Kanda of Vedas attain only the lot of arrival and departure. Next slide, sir. Upasana is practiced by different types of bhaktas in different ways. Artha and Artharthi bhaktas have religious and materialistic motive for worship. They are called Sakama bhaktas. Jignasu and Gnani bhaktas seek nothing other than God. They are Nishkama bhaktas. Sakama bhaktas perform a lot of yajnas, rituals, as per the Karma Kanda of Vedas for accomplishment of worldly heavenly pleasures. They invoke the gods through yajnas, who in turn nourish them with heavenly pleasures. They become the partakers of remnants of the sacrifices and get themselves freed from sin. Such bhaktas attain finite punya, and Kramamukti is also finite. Kama labhante. Here, 2 kamas are used. The first one refers to worldly goals. Kamayate iti kamaha, anatma vishaya. And the second kama refers to desire. That means those who have anatma vishaya are Sakama bhaktas. They perform Vedic rituals seeking worldly benefits and not for liberation. Trayi dharmam anuprapanna are those people who follow the ritualistic part of Vedas. They are the knowers of 3 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Sama Veda. Atharva Veda is not mentioned here because it's used in the rituals. Different levels of bhakti and types of bhaktas are explained in the slide 3. Kshine punyam matyalokam vishanti. The celestial pleasures which the Sakama bhaktas attain are finite. They have to pay heavily for such pleasures at Swargaloka by means of their accumulated punya. In due course of time, when their punya gets exhausted, they have to come back to the world of mortals. Swargaloka is only a bhoga bhumi for enjoying celestial pleasures and not for acquiring fresh punya through karma. This can happen only in Bhuloka, which is a karma bhumi. All luxuries and pleasures in upper lokas are finite and meager when compared with the Brahmananda ocean of happiness attained through Nishkama Bhakti. This is what the Mundaka Upanishad says. Ishtapurtam manyamana varishte nanyachreyo vedayante pramodha nakasya prishtete sakratonu bhutva imam lokam heenataram vavishanti. Sakama karmas are done with a desire which yield finite results. These are foolish people, pramodha, who think performing Vedic rituals and sacrifices are the best. They are not aware of anything better. They are unintelligent people seeking worldly pleasures. Next slide, sir. Gatagatam. The consequence of Sakama Bhakti is Gata, Gatam, Agatam. Gata is going to Swargaloka, Agatam is coming back to Bhuloka. Earning Punyam or Papa through actions can happen only in Bhuloka. All the other 13 lokas are either for exhaustion of Punya or exhaustion of Papa. 6 higher lokas are for Punya and 6 lower lokas are for exhaustion of Papa. This is a cyclic process of a Sakama Bhakta, Samsari, as explained in this slide. To be out of this cycle process of birth, death, and rebirth, seeker has to follow Nishkama Bhakti, which is explained in the next verse. He becomes a Gnananishta, who has total absorption of mind in his primary relationship with God alone. There is no individual separate from God. This is an integral part of Nishkama Bhakti. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sukanya, for a nice explanation, and again, very painstakingly made slides. Again, very often quoted to say how Swargaloka is not the ultimate goal, because Kshine Punye Mrityulokam Vishanti. The moment our punyas are exhausted, then we return back to, depending upon our prarabdha, to different goals. The next verse, again, a very often quoted verse, will be explained to us by Dr. Kiran. Over to you, Dr. Kiran.
Namaste, Gurubhyo Namaha. Ananyas chittayanto ma ye janaha pari upasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam mahamya. This is a very important and often quoted verse. In the previous 2 verses, Krishna has talked about Sakama Bhakti or Manda Bhakti. Here, he talks about Madhyama Bhakti or Nishkama Bhakti, for whom God is not just a means, he is the end ultimate goal. This is called Moksha or Tivra Mumukshu in Vedantic language, or Jignasu Bhakti in 7th chapter. Let us study what is the benefit of such a devotion. There are 3 types of bhakta. One is Grihastha Bhakta, in which he is in Grihastha Ashrama but has Jignasu. Second is Vividisha Sannyasa, where he has formally taken Sannyasi. And third is Vidvat Sannyasa. E Janaha, Lord Krishna can refer to all 3. But Shankaracharya specifically tells that this is addressed to Vidvat Sannyasa. Vidvat Sannyasas are Jnana Bhaktas who have completed Shravanam and Mananam and have left Gurukulam. For example, when Chinmayananda completed his teaching under Tapovan Ji Maharaj, he asked him what to do. He said, go to the world and live with Bhiksha and come back after 6 months. This type of sannyasis are called Vidvat Sannyas. We all know love for end is superior to love for means, because we often dump the means once we reach the end. But love for oneself is superior to even that. So we should move from Manda Bhakta to Mumukshu to Gnani Bhakta, because they have understood that Brahman and myself are essentially same, Abheda. They are now in the process of assimilating this fact. Ananyaha, na anya, no other. There's nothing superior other than to seek God. He is Siddha Swarupa, beyond Sadhya. So, love for oneself is superior, and there is no difference between me and Brahman. Chintayanta ma, contemplate on this always, like how mother always thinks of her baby even while doing household chores. Paryupasate, offer worship. If moksha is seen as goal, then we fall into the trap of triangular format. So we have to be careful. Here, we have to know the Swarupa of God, and we have to move from means to the goal. Chintayantam means mumukshu. to give up what does not belong to me, all the bondages born out of ajnana, misunderstanding, or ego, and realize that something is amiss in the present realm of Jagat or triangular format, and love for real self or God. This does not mean always chanting God's name and asking things, but striving relentlessly to know and imbibe God. This is the real secret or Rajaguhya. This is what he refers in the previous chapter as Antyakala Devasmarana. Aham Vahami, I take care of. Tesha Nitya Abhiyukta means dwell or in the teaching always. Yoga Kshema. Does the God come to protect us always with Shankara Chakrara Gadadhari? No. I will tell you a parable of Ramakrishna. Once a Bhakta's village was marooned by flood. He went to a rooftop and started praying. His neighbor came, come, let us escape. He said, no, no, God will come. Next, a boatman came and asked. Again, he said, no, no, God will come and save me, you go. Ultimately, he died and reached heaven, and he asked God, I prayed for you all my life, but you never came. Then God said, first I came as your neighbor, you never came. Next, I came as a boatman and asked, you never came. Now why are you blaming me? This is how our life will be. So he has already given us the protective shield in the form of scriptures, dharma, sanatana dharma, which actually means love, compassion, and truth, these timeless value, and not just religion, and ultimately guru. So put everything in one sentence. Lord does not give security. Lord is the ultimate security. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran. This is another very often quoted verse. Ananya chintayanto ma ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam mahahamyaham. Now, this is a shift in the gears. We have now shifted from sakama to nishkama. When a person now is able to trust God so completely, this is the state where he is no longer bothered about his own yoga or kshema. And Sri Krishna says for such a person who is able to understand his true nature and surrender to the higher forces, all his requirements will be taken care. And this requires a tremendous amount of vairagya to come to this level of understanding. The last verse for today will be explained to us by Indumati. Over to you, Indumati.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yepyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitah tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. The word by word meaning goes like this. Ye api, even those, anya devata bhaktaha, devotees of other gods also, yajante shraddhayanvitaha, worship with faith, te api mam eva, me only, kaunteya, O son of Kunti, but yajanti avidhi purvakam, they worship unknowingly by the wrong method. This verse says, O Arjuna, even those who are devotees of other finite gods and who worship them with faith are worshipping me alone unknowingly, but by the wrong method. The large-heartedness and endless love in the heart of Sri Krishna makes him declare, they too worship me alone. In the next slide, in the previous verse, Lord Krishna said, the Nishkama Bhaktas are those who worship me. Does that mean every seeker of moksha should worship Krishna? No. To clarify this, he says in chapter 7, verse 21, Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhayarchitum ichchati tasya tasyachalam shraddham tam eva vidadhamyaham. This says, whatever form the devotees desire to worship with faith, that is Shraddha, that same faith of his will be made firm and unflinching. In the next slide, Sri Krishna reminds us here briefly, any form of God is infinite in nature because form means finitude. We can evoke a finite power in any particular form. What we invoke is purely in our hands. So the value of a deity depends upon our invocation. Swami Paramarthanandaji gives a simple example here, which is very clear. The value of a chuck leaf depends on what we write on it. We cannot say first chuck leaf is superior to the second one or vice versa. Only after the first chuck leaf is filled with the amount, or any chuck leaf is filled with the amount, we can say which leaf is more superior. Similarly, all the devatas are equal, finite only. But when I invoke the infinite, when the devata in whom infinite is invoked will become superior to all the other devatas. In the next slide, in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna represents Ananta Tattvam, infinitude. Therefore, he says, I should be worshipped. Even if you worship other devatas, that will also come to me alone, he says, because finite is included in the infinite, and Sri Krishna represents the limitless. He is Purna Brahman. Infinite includes all finite. Therefore, Sri Krishna says, any worship offered to the devatas will come to me alone. Similarly, any result, any blessing given to the bhaktas are not by those devatas, but they are from Krishna alone. Through that particular devata, Krishna blesses all. Next, we have to understand that since all the other devatas represent only finite powers, by worshipping those devatas, a person gets only finite benefit. That is, limited powers like Lakshmi for wealth, Saraswati for knowledge, and so on. Therefore, worshipping of these devatas will come under Sakama Bhakti and get only finite results. If we want infinite result, we have to go to Sri Krishna, where we can get the infinite result. In the next slide, we see that Sri Krishna represents Nishkama Bhakti, that is, Akashat Patitam Toyam Yatha Agacchati Sagaram Sarvadeva Namaskaram Keshavam Pratigacchati. As the rainwater falling from the sky finally reaches the ocean, the worship of every deity ultimately reaches the one God, that is Keshava, the Supreme Being. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Indumati, for a nice explanation with very beautiful, nicely illustrated slides to explain this very important verse, where many things become clear because there is only one Supreme God. And Sri Krishna says it does not matter in what form and in what context you pray to, because all prayers come to that one particular God alone. But then we have this option that on a particular deity, we can invoke the finite or we can invoke the infinite. Whenever we are invoking a deity for a particular requirements, then we confine ourselves to only the finite. But then we have the option that we can use a particular form and invoke the infinite. So that is what has been explained very beautifully in this particular verse. With that, we come to the end of today's class, where we have seen so much of bhakti. And then we, in the next class, which comes on the 20th of December, we will have some of the most beautiful verses which can transform the way we relate to God. Patram pushpam palam toyam. It does not matter what you offer, but are you doing it with bhakti? Another verse which says, how in every action that you do, yat karoshi, yadasnashi, even whatever you eat, yad yuhoshi dadasi, yat, whatever you give me, make it as an offering to me and I will accept it. We will conclude today's class by the chanting of those verses which we have just studied by Vaibhavi. Over to you, Vaibhavi.
Om Shri Bhagavanuvacha Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasa Sharanam Suhrata Prabhavav Pralayasthanam Nidhanam Bijamavyayam Tapamyahamaham Varsham Nigrinhamyutsrujami cha Amritam chaiva mrityuscha Sadasacchahamarjuna Traividya mam somapah putapapah Yagnairištva svargatim prarthayante Te punyamasadya surendra lokam Ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan Te tam bhuktva svargalokam vishalam Kshine punye martyalokam vishanti Evam trayi dharma manuprapannaha Gatagatam kama kama labhante Ananyashchintayanto mam Ye janav paryupasate Tesham nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam vahamyaham Yepyanyadevata bhaktaha Yajante shraddhayanvitaha Tepi mameva kaunteya Yajantya vidhipurvakam Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Our pranams and thanks to our beloved Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir and all the speakers for their wonderful explanations with beautiful illustrations. Friends, by nature, all have no option but to do karma, and irrespective of whether karma phalam is good or bad, they bind us to bondage. Hence, it is crucial that we should work in such a way that instead of further bondage, karma should lead us to moksha. Hearty thanks to dear Vaibhavi for your wonderful recitation of today's verses in a melodious voice with bhakti. Thank you, participants, for joining us in today's study. Remember to join us again for the 65th session on Monday, 20/12/21, and continue our study of further verses of the 9th chapter. Friends, on behalf of Param Vedanta, I would like to thank all those who have contributed to the collective Guru Dakshina to be offered to our Gurus on the occasion of Gita Jayanti. I request all to make contribution early and also submit necessary details on Google Forms using link provided in the message earlier. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.